Molly Hooper is in Washington. She's a Capitol Hill reporter for The Hill. Hey, Molly.
Hello, welcome. Happy Friday, I should say.
I know, TGIF, hashtag TGIF. All right, Molly, lots to talk about. Let's start with healthcare. Okay. What are you hearing from GOP leadership in terms of the real possibilities of a vote next week?
Well, the leaders are sort of tamping down this speculation that there will be some kind of vote, because keep in mind, in the past, when they were saying, yes, we're going to have a vote, they didn't end up having it. So they've been, stepping back from this a little bit. But the leaders of the two factions in the Republican conference, the centrists and the Freedom Caucus, Tom MacArthur and Mark Meadows, are saying, hey, you know what? We're on the way to a deal. In fact, The Hill is reporting that a committee aide with the Energy and Commerce Committee, is giving them sort of technical guidance in drafting an amendment that the two could offer to the AHCA, the Republican bill to repeal Obamacare, that could come as soon as tonight or tomorrow.
So yeah, and we know that House Republicans are having this conference call on Saturday. Is it clear that the language is going to be ready by then?
It's not clear that the language is going to be ready, but what is also not clear is whether these two leaders of the factions have the support of those factions. And that's half of the problem. It's nice for two members of the Republican conference to get together and say, hey, we're working out a deal, but keep in mind, the Republican conference is quite fractious. Right. And just because one centrist thinks it's a good idea doesn't mean another centrist is going to think it's a good idea as well.
Right. All right. Well, the president has added, of course, another legislative priority, as you well know, tax reform, saying a plan could come as early as Wednesday or shortly thereafter. Again, how realistic is this new push before the 100-day mark? Do you have a sense from Republicans that this was expected, or did this come as a surprise?
Well, I think that Republicans, the Republicans that I talked to before the recess said that that a tax plan could come as, in early May. So that's not really a surprise too much. But keep in mind, they've been working on a tax reform plan, and this is something that Speaker Paul Ryan had been working on for months ahead of time. This is something that they actually thought could move pretty early, and where they could get Democratic buy-in. And so this is, again, this is one of those issues that President Trump, reportedly said, man, I wish we had gone for tax reform before the Obamacare repeal. But anyway, so that is something that I think we probably could see Wednesday. Again, it will, I think, have to depend on what happens with the Obamacare deal that these House Republicans are talking about.
And do we have any sense as to substance at this point, Molly, how comprehensive we might expect this plan to be, what it might include and leave out?
Well, again, what I've been hearing is, or at least what I've read in the reports, is that, Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, said, well, we're going to make these tax cuts, but we're going to pay for them with economic growth. And a big sticking point with conservatives in the House and in the Senate is that if we're going to have if we want to have tax cuts, that's great, but we've got to pay for them some way. And it's going to be interesting to see how they fashion this, again, because so much of it has to do with Obamacare and the taxes that are in Obamacare, to see how the two are related.
Right. Well, next week, the White House and Republicans on Capitol Hill have to keep the government open. What are the sticking points here for Democrats? What issues could Republicans potentially work with Democrats on?
Well, there's so many sticking points. And the thing that's interesting to me is that, this happens every year. It's like college students or high school students cramming for a test the night before. It's like the night before the government's going to shut down, all of a sudden everybody's getting serious about it. Because, Republicans are insisting on having funding for the wall, for the border wall. That's something President Trump definitely wants in there. Democrats want the funding for Obamacare, these payments that are made to the states, and to the insurance companies to help lower people's costs. And so they're trying to negotiate on those items. Today, Mick Mulvaney, who is the OMB director, told Bloomberg News that we could have maybe $1 of border wall funding for $1 of these Obamacare payments, and he said, that's how we're going to fashion this. But then a few minutes later, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said, no, we didn't agree to that. And it's going to be interesting to see how closely Democrats really stick to denying that funding for the border wall. That's going to be a big issue in this funding bill, because keep in mind, since President Trump has not had legislative successes, if he can get money that goes towards building that border wall, and he can somehow, sign this into a funding bill, he can claim that as a victory. And that's a legislative victory. So that's a big deal for Democrats and for President Trump, and we'll have to see where they come to agreement. Somewhere in between, maybe.
Maybe.
or we may be working over the weekend.
Yeah, could be. Well, finally, let me look ahead to Monday here, Molly. Former President Obama, as you know, is going to be delivering a speech from Chicago, his first public event since leaving office just days before President Trump will mark his 100th day in office. Against the backdrop of all of that, against the backdrop of frustration and fury that we've seen from the Democratic base and the left, what do you expect President Obama's message will be?
Well, ostensibly the message is supposed to be about, civic organization, back when he was an organizer, a community organizer, and how people can get, involved in the community and whatnot. But, since it's a town hall style meeting, he's bound to get questions on President Trump's allegations that then President Obama wiretapped the incoming president, and I don't see how he avoids that. And people familiar with what President Obama wants to say, again, staying focused on a positive message, they're saying, we want to try to stay away from touching these hot button issues. But again, it's a town hall style meeting in Chicago, and I just don't see how you avoid it. So it will be very interesting to see how he threads that needle.
Yes, we will all be watching very closely. Molly Hooper in Washington for us. Molly, great to see you. Thank you.
Great to see you.